Ellie Story, Chapter 10. I curled up on my bed in the kennel, my head whirling with fear and confusion. I did not feel like a good dog. I'd done my work, but now Jacob was gone and I was sleeping all night long at the kennel instead of in my own bed next to Jacob's big one. I felt like I was being punished, but for what? For fighting the man with the gun? Biting people was not part of finding them, I knew that. And now Jacob was hurt. The memory of his pain and the smell of his blood made me whimper as I lay there. I remember how I'd felt when I was a puppy and Jacob had left me in the apartment. I'd been worried each time, but Jacob had always come back. The thought made me feel better. Jacob would come back. All I had to do was wait. The next few days were even more confusing. I lived in the kennel. A few times a day, one of the police officers would come and get me out into the yard, let me out into the yard, but they never had work for me to do, and they would put me back into the kennel quickly and hurry away. Amy talked to me and played with me a little, but she and Cammy were gone a lot of the time. Sometimes Gypsy wanted to play, I've got the ball and you don't, but I didn't feel like it. Mostly, I sat at the gate, waiting. Slowly, Jacob's smell faded from the yard. Even when I concentrated, I could not locate him. If I was supposed to find him, I would not be able to. The thought made me bark anxiously until Amy came to let me out and pet me and talk to me. I couldn't understand her words, but I felt a little better. That day, I played with Gypsy and got the ball away from her twice. A few days later, Amy brought her lunch out to a table in the yard. Cammy and I were in the kennel together, but all he wanted to do was nap. He wasn't interested in playing, even when I showed him a rubber bone one of the police officers had given me. I don't understand what Cammy's job was. Why would anyone want to have a nap dog? Cammy was interested in Amy's lunch, however. She led us both out, and he walked over to the table and sat down heavily at her feet. He sighed as if he had many serious problems that could only be cured with a bite of her ham sandwich. A woman came out and joined Amy, sitting down at the other side of the table. "Hi, Maya," said Amy. Maya had dark hair and dark eyes and was tall for a woman. Her arms looked strong. Her pants smelled faintly of cats. She sat down, opened a little box, then took a fork out of it and began chomping on something spicy. "Hi, Amy," she said. "Hello, Ellie." Maya didn't say hello to Cammy, I noticed. I liked that. I liked her. I liked Amy too, but Amy belonged to Cammy. She wasn't my human the way Jacob had been. When would Jacob come back? He had been gone such a long time. Maya, though, was right here, and she smelled good. So did her food. I moved closer to her. She petted me, smoothing down the fur on my head. I caught a whiff of soap and tangy tomatoes on her skin. "Did you put in your paperwork?" Amy asked. "Fingers crossed," Maya replied. I lay down and gnawed at my rubber bone. Maybe Maya would see how much fun I was having and decide to coax my attention back by offering me a bite of her lunch. "Poor Ellie. She's got to be so confused," Amy said. I looked up. "Lunch? You sure you really want to do this?" Amy asked. Maya sighed, and I could feel some tension coming off her. "I know it's hard work, but what isn't, you know? I'm just getting to that point. It's the same old thing every day. I'd like to try something new, do something different for a few years." "Hey, you want a taco? My mom made them. They're really good." "No, thanks." I sat up. "Taco? I wanted a taco." Maya wrapped up the rest of her lunch as if I weren't there. "You people in K9 are all in such good shape. Losing weight is so hard for me. You think I can hack it?" "What? No, you're fine. Didn't you pass the physical?" "Sure," Maya said. "Well, there you go." Amy stuffed her trash into a little paper sack. "I mean, if you want to run with me, I usually go to the track after work, but I'm sure you'll be great." I felt Maya calm down just a little, as if Amy's words had been what she needed to hear. "I sure hope so," she said. "I'd hate to let Ellie down." I decided that no matter how often they said my name, this conversation wasn't going to involve anything to eat. I sprawled out in the sunshine with a sigh, wondering how much longer it would be before Jacob came back and we could go to work again. Maya came and ate lunch in the yard a few times after that. Then one day she came into the yard without any food. She was happy and excited. The feelings were floating off of her, and she was smiling. She clipped on my leash and took me for a car ride. "We're going to work together, Ellie. Isn't that great?" You won't have to sleep in the kennel anymore. I bought a bed for you. You can sleep in my room. There was some words in there that I knew. Ellie, kennel, bed, and of course work. But none of what she said made any real sense. We weren't going to work. I could tell just from Maya's voice and the lack of tension in her body. So why was she talking about it? I didn't mind it that much, though. I was happy to go somewhere. Anyway. So after many days in the same place. Plus, Maya let me ride in the back seat of her car. I stuck my nose out the window, blissfully drinking in the smells of everything that was not the kennel. Maya parked in the driveway of some small house. As soon as she took me in the door, I knew it was hers. Her smell was painted everywhere. Alongside it was the odor of cats. That was a disappointment. I carefully inspected every corner of the house. There was an orange cat sitting on a chair at the table. She watched me warily with cold eyes. When I came closer, tail wagging, she opened her mouth wide to show me her teeth and gave an almost silent hiss. Stella, be nice. That's Stella. Stella, this is Ellie. She lives here now. Stella yawned and turned her head to lick the fur on her back as if I weren't even worthy of being noticed. I would have taught her a lesson or two, but a flash of gray and white movement out of the corner of my eye drew my attention. Tinker? That's Tinkerbell. She's shy. Another cat? I followed Maya into the bedroom. There, a third cat, a heavy brown and black male, sauntered out from under the bed and sniffed at me. I could smell his fish breath. And that's Emmett, Maya told me. Stella, Tinkerbell, and Emmett. Why on earth would one woman want 3 cats? Tinkerbell lay under the bed for the rest of that evening, thinking I couldn't smell her there. When Maya poured some food for me into a bowl, Emmett came into the kitchen and stuck his nose into my dinner, and then he lifted his head and walked away as if he didn't even care that I was eating and he wasn't. I made sure to lick the bowl clean. No cats were getting any of my food. Stella stayed on the chair and watched me without blinking. After dinner, Maya let me out into her tiny yard. Good girl, she said after I'd done what I was supposed to do. Some humans seem to get excited when they notice dogs peeing in the yard. I guess that Maya was one of them. Maya made her own dinner, which smelled pretty good. Stella seemed to think so too because she jumped right up on the table and waltzed around like a bad cat. I couldn't believe her lack of manners. Maya didn't even scold her. I suppose Maya thought cats were even worth training. After spending the afternoon with these 3, I pretty much agreed with her. After dinner, we went for a walk on the leash. There were a lot of people out in their yards, adults and children of all ages. All the different smells made me restless. I hadn't done any work in a long time, and I was getting impatient. I wanted to run, to find, to save people. Without meaning to, I began to pull against the leash that Maya held. Maya seemed to understand. Want to run, a little girl? She asked as she began to trot alongside me. I sped up, sticking right by Maya's side, as Jacob had taught me. Before long, she was breathing hard, and I could smell sweat breaking out from her pores. Inside the houses we passed, dogs started barking, jealous that we were running, and they were not. All of a sudden, Maya stopped. Phew, she panted. Okay, we're going to need to spend more time on that treadmill, that's for sure. I was disappointed. No more running, but I turned obediently when Maya tugged on the leash and we headed back home. It seemed that Maya's house really was home now. I began to understand it that night. I stretched out on the living room rug while Maya took a bath and changed into different, softer clothing, and then she called me into her bedroom. Okay, lie down here, Ellie. Good girl, she said, patting the dog bed. I knew about dog beds. I curled up in it at once, and Maya praised me before she lay down in the big bed above me, but I was confused. Would I be staying here for a while? I remembered how I had once lived in the basement with Mother and my littermates, and then I had lived with Jacob. Had things changed again? Did I live here now? But what about Jacob? Wasn't he going to come back this time? I had waited patiently. He'd always come back before, but this time? Was it going to be different? And what about my work? How could I work without Jacob? The next morning, I found out. Maya took me in her car, and we went back to the park where I had gone so often with Jacob. Wally was there, and he greeted me like an old friend. Belinda had come, too. She smiled and scratched my ears in just the right way, and then she waved and walked off into the woods while Wally stayed and talked to Maya. I knew a lot of words he used when he talked with her, come and find and show me, but he wasn't saying them to me, and it didn't seem as though I were supposed to do anything. I lay down and put my head on my paws, sighing with impatience. Wasn't I going to do any work? And then Maya said something exciting. Ellie, find! I jumped up. Yes, work at last! I quickly sniffed the grass and picked up a trail. It was Belinda's. She'd smelled like coffee and a tangy perfume and sugar from the donut she'd been eating. I followed the trail, running quickly just for the pleasure of it. Wally and Maya followed. Belinda was sitting inside a car. If she had been hoping to fool me that way, no luck. I circled back to Maya. See now? See how she looks, Wally said. She found Belinda. You can tell by her expression. I waited patiently for Maya to tell me to show, but she and Wally were too busy talking. I could have barked with impatience, but I knew better. It was hard to wait, though. It had been so long since I'd found anyone. I wanted to finish the job. I'm not sure, Maya said. She doesn't look much different than the other time she came back. Look at her eyes, the way her mouth is tightened. Wally told Maya, her tongue's not out, see? She's on alert. She has something to show us. At the word show, I started to lunge forward, but then I pulled myself back. It hadn't really been a command, but why not? Why weren't we doing our jobs? So, now I tell her to show, Maya asked. I whined. Quit teasing me. Were we working or not? Show, Maya finally called. Yes, at last. I tore off across the park, and Maya hurried along behind me. Belinda came out of the car laughing when we found her. Such a good dog, Ellie, she told me. Now you play with Ellie, Wally said to Maya. It's important. It's her reward for such hard work. Maya took something out of her pocket, the rubber bone from the kennel. I leapt to grab it with my teeth. She laughed as she tugged on the bone, and I pulled back, swinging her in a circle on the grass. It was different from the times Jacob had played with me. He'd done it because he had to. It was part of work. Maya was smiling even when I pulled the bone out of her hand, and she almost fell to the grass. You're so strong, Ellie, she gasped, and laughed some more. Good girl, Ellie. She petted me and scratched my neck, and we played a little more tug-of-war with the bone before we got back to work. It was different doing work with Maya, but it was still work, and that was the most important thing.